No, we do no such thing.
No, there's no test, of course.
Only below ground, no above ground testing.
No, above ground. That's in the show.
Very good.
And we're off to a rolling start.
Very appropriate for tonight. Actually, what we're doing for all these events is they show you all the posters and talk about it, and then the cocktails complement the posters. So for the theme now, where our cocktails are going to be atomic themed cocktails. And what we're starting with is actually one of the newer cocktails. It's called a nuclear daiquiri. Woo! It was created at the London Academy of Bartenders, LAB, the lab, back in 2005. So it's actually going to be our youngest cocktail. The late Gregor de Groot here put on the menu there in 2005. He's the one who created it. It did not really take off at first. It wasn't really all that popular. It had to build. And then Gary Regan, in his second edition of his bartender manual, put it in there. And we're doing something that's based on his recipe. It has chartreuse. And then just a short while ago, the Vatican was rumored to be putting limits on the Chartreuse Mountains, who made good chartreuse. So there was a run on chartreuse. It's fine, it's back.
Will the conclave fix it?
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see what the new Pope says about it, whether the monks are allowed to keep producing as much as they were. Chartreuse comes in green and yellow, both delicious. This is the green one we're going to have, and I'll give you the recipe right now. What you're drinking, we're starting with an overproof rum. This is Santa Ana. It's 138, and 138 is the proof, 69% alcohol. It's an overproof rum. The Gary Regan's recipe, he prefers Ray and Nephew, which is a Jamaican rum. This is a Puerto Rican rum. We just happen to like it, and we happen to have it available. And we're actually going to start off with just 1 ounce of that. That's the thing, that's why this cocktail, it's a lot of alcohol, but we're only going to be putting 1 ounce of this. So there we go. Then we're going to have an ounce of lime juice. So I'm going to cut a lime. Just real quick. Juicing limes is super, super easy. Boom. There you go. 1 lime should give you roughly an ounce. I have 2 here just in case. I'm also going to be cutting a lime wheel. And then, the bartender tricks is you're going to strain it. Get all that stuff out. There we go. So these are our small
Obviously,
limes.
if you like your cocktails pulpy, you can leave that step out.
I do not like them pulpy. I'm going to squeeze 2 here real quick.
Could you say again, 1 ounce comes from how many limes?
Well, if it's a big lime, 1 ounce.
No, I mean,
Size matters.
Some limes are like,
One big juicy
It's a
one.
big juicy lime. So yeah, these are the smaller size.
the memory same as same.
And some limes are juicier than others.
Indubitably.
So there we go. So I'm going to do
As
that.
in so many things. Wait, did anyone watch Posters and Cocktails during the pandemic to know how chaotic this is and the fact that this got mainlined into an actual program?
Yes.
Who's the? Oh yes, you, of course, of course.
So that's why we double strain. There we go. That's all. And voila. Now.
So that's like 2 ounces? I mean, 1 and a
Right
half?
now it's 2 ounces. It's equal. This is equal parts lime juice and rum. Traditionally, it would not be if you're making just a regular daiquiri, but this is an overproof rum and it's a special recipe. Traditionally, daiquiris are like most of the basic Caribbean drinks: rum, lime, sugar, and water. So this is going to be 3/4 ounces of chartreuse.
Which is a smaller part of the jigger.
Yes,
Yeah.
this one has measuring lines.
You're a jigger lover.
What's the difference between green and yellow chartreuse?
The botanicals that are in it. For me, I think it's been a long time since I've had yellow chartreuse. I think the green's a little sweeter, and yellow is
dryer, but I forget what the different botanicals are that make it.
This isn't a
Like that.
biology exam.
And Velvet Falernum, which is a liquor which is based on rum with allspice and other botanicals as well. And then this is just going to be a 1/4 ounce. Yeah, it's called Falernum. Comes from Barbados. Okay. Oh, it's not the conclave.
Limiting the monks.
The monks were starting to make a lot of money, and it was becoming it's a business enterprise for the Carthusian monks. So they wanted them to focus more on religious things and less on running the business. So there we go.
So wait, the Pope is against industrious monks?
When they're out for just making a profit, I think. So, I don't know. Well, I mean, there's no run now. It's all good. So, if I was at home and I had a big enough freezer, I would be chilling the glass. So,
We don't have a freezer, so.
we're just doing this for a demonstration. And also, these are big coupes. My coupes at home are much smaller. So, there we go. And then just garnish with the lime wheel.
Yay.
Yay. And that is the nuclear daiquiri. Very boozy, very limey,
It's
very sweet.
very boozy.
And a bit
Can you
herbal,
tell?
too. So,
It is delicious.
and I'll give you back to Angelina and Nicho.
Thank you, Don.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to start at the front of the exhibition, so if you could head to the other side of this wall, that would be great, and I won't trip over the cord this time.
Follow us. Thank you, Donald.
All right, has anybody actually been to this exhibition before? Yeah. Thank you, superfans. But nobody else. Okay, so I will try to give a bit more history, but for background, Nicho, I curated the show with Tim Medland. He's a curator that worked on our environmental show, if you were at our environmental exhibition. Nicho is new to this show as of this evening.
No, I came to the opening night, so I'm,
Yes, but were you reading the wall text?
no.
Great, so you're new to the exhibition as of this evening.
Yes.
And if you could be quiet on the other side of the wall! So rude. You can photograph, you can videotape, you can do whatever you like. But just so you have an idea of the ethos of the exhibition, this exhibition I pitched to my old boss before I was the director years ago, and I wanted to do a show on general dynamics, but that's actually incredibly hard to do because if you do a show on anything, you're basically endorsing it and celebrating it in some way, and doing an exhibition on the weapons manufacturer is challenging. So my boss said, great idea, what else can you do? And I said, well, if I work with Tim, whose specialty is grassroots movements, activism, et cetera, I can do a point-counterpoint show and talk about the proliferation of nuclear weapons in the aftermath of World War II, and then the protests that happened basically starting with the Cuban Missile Crisis to the present day. So it's a really heavy history show, and I really encourage you to read the wall labels because there is some crazy history involved in the research behind this exhibition. But basically the main things you need to know before Nicho starts talking about these posters is a few months after Eisenhower became president, they were like, by the way, we tested and managed to detonate the first hydrogen bomb. And he was like, fuck, sorry. Because as the supreme commander of the Allied forces during World War II, he knew exactly how devastating that level of an extreme weapon of war could be, because that just leads to an unending escalation in what everyone would do in response to that. And so the entire show begins from that point. But we start in this very dark area that highlights what was happening just before that moment. It's these 4 posters, and I think you have 2 favorites you want to talk about.
I do. I want to give a larger overview, and I want to put myself into a context that removes me from the alcoholic museum biosphere that I happen to be inhabiting right now. By day, I own and run an auction house in New York, Swann Galleries, where I'm the head of the poster department. I've worked with vintage posters for my entire professional career, which is longer than I'm willing to admit, but
But at least 20 years, because that's how long I've.
it's been longer than 20 years. But so do the math. I've also been involved with the PBS television show, The Antiques Roadshow, as their poster specialist for 30 years. So that's the only number I'll give out. You can make the rest of it in. So I do have a lot of experience with posters. I did study history at college. That was actually in the Eisenhower administration, so I don't remember all that I learned. But no, it wasn't.
Okay.
So I want to bring my own perspective to this show. And the first thing I want to bring your attention to, which those of you who are familiar with Poster House will know, is that the exhibition design that has been done for the show is just phenomenal. And you will see, you'll see the painted walls around you, you'll see how it reflects some of the posters that are in the show. And one of Poster House's great strengths is this incredible exhibition design that they have, which further pulls us into the exhibition. The other thing I want to say about this particular show that is different, this is a very picayune detail. And you mentioned before, in regards to juicy limes, that size really matters. What you will see walking around the show that I have noticed is that unlike the other shows at Poster House, that the other exhibitions you've had, largely the posters in this exhibition are smaller.
Yes.
There's a lot of smaller posters, and I cast zero aspersions because size doesn't matter, I've been told. But it's something to keep in mind. And the other thing that's also very important is obviously posters are advertisements, but posters can also be social documents. Mm-hmm. And the majority of this show, I feel, is about social documentary imagery rather than great graphic design. But let's start with some great graphic design. The final point that I want to make, and the last difference of this show from the other shows, the other exhibitions at Poster House, is that there are so many great poster artists out there, but it is rare that a well-known artist who is not a poster artist designs posters. And in this show, there are a number of works by famous artists who were famous before they designed posters. So, and that's where I want to begin. We have these two posters right here by one of the great Swiss artists, Hans Erni, and then one of the great German, specifically East German artists, John Hartfield. They're both very different in style. One is smaller than the other, but I was just reading your incredible text, and you said that this is the first anti-nuclear poster that was ever done?
It is the first documented anti-nuclear poster ever created.
So Hans Erni was one of the most famous Swiss artists. He designed Swiss postage stamps, he designed statues. I think he was native to Lucerne. There's a big statue to peace in Lucerne that he designed. Basically, in Switzerland, he is a household name. And he was also a big activist. I know, not here so much, but you'll study Swiss art history, you'll find more about him. He designed an awful lot of posters, including this one, and the imagery is, it feels familiar to us because it's so common. No, I didn't know until tonight that this was the first, but we see the world as a skull, we see the skull exploding in a mushroom cloud. It's a powerful, powerful graphic. And Switzerland is a 4-language country, right? So what is it, German, Italian, Swiss German?
No, German, Italian, French, and Romanche.
Romanche, which is the Swiss German.
No, it's like it's a
Different from
Romani
Santa.
language.
Anyway, so this poster appears in 4 different languages, this being the French version. I wouldn't call it beautiful, but I'd call it striking and important and mesmerizing. And then the other poster, which I find just gripping. See what I'm doing here? Gripping. John Hartfield was a very politically oriented designer, and I can't speak for any of you here, but from my point of view, he was properly politically aligned. He was anti-fascist, virulently anti-Hitler. Anybody who disagrees with me can fuck off. And he really made his name in the 1920s and 1930s, in the era between the war, doing anti-fascist photo montages. And he worked for a magazine in Prague called AIZ, which was the Arbeiter Illustrierte Zeitung. He designed book covers, and all of his work was very charged and very political. And then this was done, I believe, in East Germany, right?
It was.
And again, I mean, the imagery is great. When you just see this image, Atomkrieg is atomic war, and you see the strong hand basically choking the neck of the atomic snake. But it's not just any atomic snake. If you look at the snake's tongue, it's a dollar sign. So it's the Western atomic snake. And even though it's anti-American, albeit from its era, it's such a strong and effective image. I think it really speaks volumes to the power that graphic design can have when imparting an important message. So there's several other pieces in the exhibition that are also by famous artists. We'll try and get to those. And sorry, famous artists who weren't specifically poster artists. But let's move on to the...
Oh, but I want to add fun facts.
Oh, fun facts,
Can I add
add.
fun
Yes,
facts?
add.
All right, so fun facts. This poster was produced during the time when France was in a combat, in conflict in what was then French Indochina. And when that happened, the US government met with the government of France to talk about the possibility of the US giving France the technology to basically use the hydrogen bomb in that conflict. Obviously, that didn't happen. The hydrogen bomb has never been used in an act of war. But during that moment, this poster was banned in Switzerland, which I find fascinating for a country that is very much in the popular imagination as incredibly neutral. That Switzerland was like absolutely not on our streets during the time of this conversation. With this poster, which I love, the interesting thing is John Hartfeld created this actually many years earlier, where it just said the equivalent of no war, as opposed to no nuclear war. This is his like remake after the fact. He also was, at this point in time, even though this is an anti-Western piece and he is in Eastern Germany, he was denied the ability to work in East Germany at this point in time because during the war, because he was obviously very anti-Hitler, he was living in England. And because he was living in England during that time, East Germany was like, you might actually be like a double agent, or you might have converted, or you might be on their side, so we're not going to let you work. So even though he was producing posters like this, he was not allowed to officially work in the country that he was born in at that time, which I find very interesting. And the third thing I'll point out is this poster, which is very tiny. It was when I bought it. So the whole show the museum purchased to build the exhibition. When I bought it, I thought it was much bigger. Check dimensions.
It's a Tinder warning for you, really.
Why, yes. So if you remember, does everyone know about Bikini Atoll and when the United States was testing the hydrogen bomb in the Pacific? At that time, there was obviously no computer modeling. So we tested bombs there. And at the time, we delineated a space that was the size of New England. We're like, yeah, that's good enough. No, it's the size of 3 New Englands. So after the hydrogen bomb was tested, the fallout from that was far greater than imagined. Obviously, people in the surrounding islands were all very negatively impacted. Those health effects are still in play today. But there was a fishing boat called the Lucky Dragon. It was a Japanese fishing boat, and everybody on board suffered from radiation sickness by the time they got back to Japan. The United States has never claimed any involvement in that, like, not our problem. But from that came the Godzilla myth, which all of us are familiar with, that without not saying without this we wouldn't have Godzilla, because that makes it sound like a positive thing, but Godzilla was born in the popular imagination because of this time period. This is an East German poster, so it's talking about American war crimes in the Pacific during, as part of atomic testing. And one thing I like to tell people when looking at any poster in this exhibition, you have to keep in mind who the audience is and who the printer is, because that tells you what their perspective is on the issues at play. Shall we go around the corner? Yes. Yes.
2 questions.
2, you're only allowed 1.
Make them
Your
more.
last one.
Okay.
So one is, what did the museum pay to put this?
That's a great question, and I'm not really good with my budget.
She's loose in a number of ways.
But to the level of
No,
calculation.
no. So most of these posters are not extraordinarily expensive. Many of these are under $500. A lot of the General Dynamics pieces cap in around like $3,000 to $5,000, depending on which one you
So you
want.
didn't borrow this work from
No,
someone?
everything
Everything is just you own now?
when I wanted to build the show, we purchased the
Everything
museum
you
purchased
own
them.
it?
The museum owns the entire show. We would love to tour. We would love to tour it. If your museum would like this show, we would love to give it to
Do you know
you.
if the H-hole is now inhabitable, or is this?
I have no idea, but if you would like to go find out. Yes.
But bikinis are.
Ooh, you're fun.
On the logic of size, is it the same one as I understand was used for things like train terminals and airports, namely that because those things that were scarier? So they made airports small because the idea of launching yourself into the air was terrifying, and so they made it small to make it seem more manageable versus
You mean the
trains.
poster size?
Yeah, exactly, versus trains where you were going to an expanse where you're staying on the ground, so it seems safe, so they made them big.
No, that's a great concept. I like this theory, but I don't think so. In many cases, posters are determined by the country that is displaying them. So everything in Switzerland is Welt format because that's the size of their hoardings.
Oh.
That is the government, like official size that you have to issue a poster in. Many of these would have been, if it's in, when we get to the protest section, post offices, laundromats, it's small because that's what they're displayed in a space that is smaller. So and also like, there are obviously all these like things that you don't necessarily have to consider, like what's the printing budget? What is the size of the stone that the printer has? All the General Dynamics posters are Welt format because they're printed in Switzerland.
Don't forget too, in the 1950s and 60s, airports weren't what they are today. None of these would have appeared in airports. And
were
used a
small.
lot less frequently, and not
They
as
weren't.
commercial. But yeah.
But yeah, so I don't think that the tenets of the design of the tenets of the message are impacting the size. I think the constraints around where they're putting is impacting.
You have
Yes.
one more. Sorry. go.
Follow-up? I mean, it sounds like what you're saying is some of these are more formal,
Yes.
formally purchased spaces, and then some of them are more informal.
Yes, and generally when we get to the activist section, if you're an activist, you're putting it on the street. You're putting it in places that aren't
You're
necessarily
not
as
putting up in
official.
an officially cordoned
Yeah.
place for, you're sniping in the middle of the night. with
Exactly.
these
So
things.
that definitely, and the show gets smaller as we get to the more activist-minded posters. Anything else before we move on to the corporate propaganda section?
Do this.
Awesome. No one ever said that about corporate propaganda.
We'll talk fast, I promise.
All right, this is just,
We'll all go this way? This way?
no, well, I'm going to start with this one.
You're going to start with this one?
I'm going to start with the thing. Okay,
Okay.
cool. Everyone come around. Everyone come around. Awesome. Hi. So,
be anybody.
as I mentioned at the beginning, when Eisenhower became president, he was told a few months into that presidency, like, oh, by the way, we were successful at detonating a thermonuclear weapon. And he was freaked out by that idea. So he produced what is considered an incredibly important speech, the Atoms for Peace speech. Does anyone know the Atoms for Peace speech? It was about nuclear non-proliferation, but the UN ran with it. They were like, this is amazing. The United Nations held a conference. It was the largest gathering of scientists ever, and many of these scientists had not had contact with each other since before World War II, so this is a big deal. It was also the largest attended event the United Nations had ever pulled off at that point in time. Massive. And the entire purpose of that convention was the idea of the peaceful uses for the atom. And the Atoms for Peace speech that Eisenhower presented was essentially, and I say this very casually, for posters and cocktails reasons. If you, country, say that if you agree that you will not produce nuclear weapons, we, the United States, or I just totally smashed that microphone, I'm sorry. We, the United States, will give you the training for your scientists, access to a supply chain, and everything else you need to produce nuclear power stations in your country, which in the aftermath of World War II, that's a game changer for many countries that are completely devastated, infrastructure-wise, post-war. So many countries are like, oh, okay, but also keep in mind, this is the beginning of the Cold War. So alignment is also of incredible political importance. And that is the major discussion that's happening at the UN. Of course, who here has been to a really boring conference? Yes. I feel like you've been to it, yeah. So there's always, there are like all of the talks at the beginning, and then there's like the trade show that happens. General Dynamics was not a major player in the weapons industry at this point in time. That was like Westinghouse and GE. but they wanted the sexiest booth at this trade show. And so John J. Hopkins, the president of General Dynamics, was like, okay, how do we get the hot booth at this convention? And so he hired Eric Nicho, who was a Swiss designer, who had done a lot of their trade ads and publications. He was the guy you went to if you wanted a sexy graph. If you wanted a corporate report that blew like the socks off your investors, he's the guy. He was not known as a particularly great graphic designer. He didn't have a specific style or something that was iconic yet, but he could make a damn good corporate report. And so he went to him and he poached them, and he's like, you're gonna be the creative director of General Dynamics right now, and I need you to create the hottest booth at this UN convention. And that's what he did. He created the first 6 posters, which you're gonna see the others when we go to the other side. And that was the highlight of this conference. And in it, obviously, he makes the imagined a reality. How do you show something that is a state secret? How do you show the first nuclear submarine? How do you visualize that when I'm not allowed to see what that actually looks like? And that's what all of these posters do. But I think you want to say something about this?
I want to say that history was more or less accurate. You should, if you care about truth in history, you should look some of that up. It was more or less accurate.
I feel insulted.
No, just corrected. One of the things I want to draw your attention to first is this poster here on my right, your left. This is a poster advertising this conference in Geneva, Atoms for Peace. And one of the things that I like about this is, in all honesty, it's not, in my personal opinion, it's not very attractive. It's not great graphic design, it's marginally interesting typography, but it is a crucially important historical document in the canon of 20th century modern history, because it's advertising this first conference on atomic energy. So things like that are very important, and it's even better when you look at something like that, which gets the message across, but nobody, again, maybe somebody, but most people wouldn't necessarily see this and say, wow, I really want to keep it because it's so beautiful or so typographically charming. But then you come to the work of Eric Nicho, and I think you have the exact opposite opinion. And to Angelina's point, he was trying to represent some of the most complex and complicated theories in the most visually digestible way. Not just is he illustrating a nuclear submarine, which he wasn't even allowed to see, and he was just told what it would be like, but the way he's done this with this Nautilus shell, with the globe in the middle of the Nautilus shell, so you have the world, you have the ocean, you have nature, and you have technology, all sort of blending together to spit out the Nautilus, and it's amazing. And these first 6 posters, which were done in 1955, were done in 6 languages. They were done in English, French, Russian, Hindi, Japanese, and German. And the reason for that is they were chosen as the 6 countries so far in the world that were using atomic energy for peaceful means at that point.
That wanted to sign up to use atomic energy for peaceful means. They didn't have it yet until Eisenhower issued.
Yeah,
they agreed
to do it.
Yeah.
Excellent. And oftentimes we talked about the Hans Erni poster, which appears in 4 different languages to appeal to all the different Swiss speakers. These posters are in 6 languages, but no poster appears twice in a different language. So it's not like this poster would ever appear in English. In fact, it did. It's a weird one.
Well,
So the English version was always English. You'd never see Atoms for Peace with German text or with Russian text. And if you just,
let's go around that
swing
way
around
because
that
it's a
way,
bigger
probably
thing,
easier.
but you can come this way. We're just going to do this set and then we'll do the next
then
cocktail.
it's time for
Great.
cocktail. So if you close your eyes and you imagine mid-century modern design, it's likely you're going to see a Nakashima table in your mind's eye, or you're going to see something like this. You have the atomic, the atom symbol everywhere. You have this incredible graphics, and keep in mind,
Atomic swirl.
atomic swirl.
Atomic swirl.
It's not really swirly.
It's called the atomic swirl.
Do you want to start explaining what the different ones are about?
No, so each one of these, because it's a trade show booth, explains or highlights one element of General Dynamics' general program for peaceful uses of the atom that they were hoping to achieve. Who here has heard of the nuclear-powered airplane? Great, because it didn't exist. And that's what aerodynamics is advertising. The idea of having a nuclear-powered airplane is a horrible idea because they couldn't figure out how to do it without radiating the crew. And what happens if it crashes? Not good. So this is a fail. But these other two, I like to highlight these two pieces because I think they show they exemplify the relevance that reading these wall labels and knowing this information has on today. So like I said, the languages that are represented in these posters highlight the first 6 countries that were interested, or the first 5 countries, because one of them is in English, that were interested in signing up for Eisenhower's Atoms for Peace program. Great. The very first one was India. And India was like, absolutely, we're in. And so the United States trained their scientists. Canada helped fund the supply chain and access the materials you would need to build a nuclear reactor. And 19 years later, India had siphoned off enough nuclear material that they detonated their first nuclear bomb underground. They sent a telegram to their president, said the Buddha is smiling. And then that started the arms race between India and Pakistan. And as of 2 weeks ago, that is incredibly relevant.
As of yesterday.
As of yesterday, that is obscenely relevant. So this poster has become incredibly important in the last few days. This poster is something a bit more broad. So who here, and I'm assuming that's almost all of us, knows somebody who has undergone cancer treatment? Almost all of us, yeah. And one of the ways that you undergo cancer treatment is through radioisotopes, which is a very targeted approach to attacking cancer growth or tumor. Where do we get radioisotopes? There was a Financial Times article maybe a year and a half ago at this point that noted that in the only place you can really get nuclear isotopes is through decommissioned nuclear submarines. The United States is fresh out. And one of the few things that are not embargoed during in the sanctions against Russia right now is the funneling of radioisotopes to the United States. So we get our cancer treatment from Russia, and that's what this poster is promoting, which blew my mind when I was reading about that. Is there anything over there you want to talk about?
We'll get back to it later. The final thing I want to point out before we get to the next cocktail is these posters are incredibly well designed. More importantly, they're incredibly well printed. At this time of his life, Erich Nietzsche was living in America, but these posters were printed in Switzerland, in Geneva, and he was apparently very friendly with the printer.
Yeah, Marston's.
And they worked very, very closely together. So you may not be able to see it with your naked eye. Honestly, I'm not even sure I can see it with my naked eye. I just see that the colors are so fresh, the colors are so bright, the delineations between the colors are so perfect. These were just incredibly well printed. We'll show you a specific example of that later. Yes. And now let's go to our next cocktail.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Question.
Pre-cocktail.
Was there a specific reason for the design and the country or language?
The first 6 posters, which were the posters that were at the convention, were the first 6 countries that signed up for the Atoms for Peace program.
There was nothing connecting India to the light bulb.
Oh,
I think that was just random.
It was dealer's choice.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yes, Clive.
So these aren't CMYK lithographs, these are all single color stone lithographs?
I believe they were zinc plate, but they should have been single color.
They're zinc plate, they're zinc lithography, with some exceptions. But I had the incredible contemporary poster designer David Kuna here a few weeks ago, and he's a Swiss poster designer. He knows this stuff. It took there is no way for me to actually tell exactly how this was printed. We can have best guesses based on if there's a dot pattern, if like what something looks like, what was included. But realistically, it's almost impossible to tell how these were printed. But they were printed very finely.
So these were for a trade show. Roughly how many of these?
Hundreds, because there are photographs, and that's the highlight of my life, which is very sad, is that I look for photographs of posters in the wild. We text each other late at night if we see posters in the wild in the vintage movie.
I wish I could tell you otherwise, that we were texting each other different things, but it's like, oh my God, I'm watching TV. Look what's in the background of this show.
Yes. But there are photographs of that, the one with the submarine, on the streets in Switzerland. So we know that it was printed in a high enough volume to pepper the streets.
But to be very clear, because of the technique they were printed by, they did not print them in the thousands. Like the lithographic technique would not have sustained 2,000 or 3,000. It was probably, I would say 1,000 max.
1,000 at most, I would say between 500, yeah.
Hundreds. but
Right, exactly
certainly
right.
like
But not
less than
thousands.
1,000.
Yeah,
Correct.
totally. Yes.
This is maybe more basic, but I'm curious, what is the actual origin of drawing the atom that way, with the 3 ellipses? Like, where
Dude,
does that come from?
there's a whole book on this.
Okay.
There is a Wikipedia that will explain this way better than I can, but that was, the symbol was born at this time, and everyone, oddly, everyone was just like, yeah, we're in.
Marvin the Martian, I think, might have been the first.
He was
Quite
later.
possible.
Wasn't he?
He was later.
the 60s.
But yeah, like basically somebody had a good idea and they were like, we're in, great, run with it, yes.
So would this have also acted as advertisement for the summit that was taking place? Would people
So
see that and
the
known?
Adams for the submarine one, yes, that was an advertisement for the conference. But realistically, because all of these say Adams for Peace at the top, what is that? That is a private company. General Dynamics is a private company co-opting the title of a president's speech
It's a great
for
question.
advertising purposes.
But it's not even advertising. This is brand building for
Yeah.
General Dynamics, and it turned out to be so outrageously effective. So they weren't saying buy a ticket to the show, in which case if they'd sold more tickets, they would have said the posters are good. This is a rather talented but rather obscure artist who decided to go way deep in brand building, and he did this extraordinary job through the detail and the subtlety of how he did it.
All right, who wants to get more drunk? Go to the table.
Back to the table. Back to the bar.
Back to Don.
It's totally a stylized Borat. It is, but it's stylized Borat.
Oh my God. Did you eat all the fucking cheese? You eat all the fucking cheese?
Not too strong or not good? I had 2 of the first ones.
It's a suit.
Yeah, we were talking about your look earlier.
Menswear.
All right, well, we'll see.
This thing is fascinating.
A concussion? All right, I'm going to go quickly pee, and then I'm going to come.
All right, everybody to Don. If you don't have a cocktail, raise your hand and the bartenders will find you.
They're going to bring the cocktails to you.
Also, who ate all the cheese?
Come on in, come on in. Now, these are all nuclear cocktails, atomic cocktails. They're very boozy. The first one was very boozy. This one is also very boozy. It's made with booze, 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 and topped off with some more booze. So, what it's called is the atomic cocktail. Of course, yeah, that's why we're here. Now, in 1951, the United States government started testing atomic bombs at the Nevada test site. That's what it's called, the Nevada test site, about 65 miles outside of Las Vegas. Now, the Las Vegas people had concerns about losing their business. The casinos were worried about all this atomic testing going on. The Chamber of Commerce was worried. They didn't have to worry. As soon as people found out that the bombs would be going off out in the desert, they started having viewing parties. They started taking tour buses out to the desert to watch them. They started having parties on their roofs to watch the mushroom clouds go off. And Vegas went full force into this. Vegas became known as Atomic City. And according to cocktail historian David Wondrich, the Las Vegas Chamber of Commerce came up with this, the atomic cocktail, which is what you're drinking now and what I'm going to be showing you in a moment. Now, testing ended in 1992, and today the National Atomic Testing Museum in Las Vegas, it documents all the history of the test site. I've been there. It's terrific. They sell refrigerator magnets with mushroom clouds and talk all about watching these bombs going off outside of Vegas. So, what we're going to start off with is a mixing glass and vodka. Now, this is Kettle One, which is imported from Holland. It's not a Russian vodka, Holland vodka. And this is going to be also pretty much an equal parts cocktail. It's going to be 1.5 ounces. I could use the other side. 1.5 ounces of vodka. then it's going to be 1.5 ounces of cognac. This we're using is Doucet. I haven't tried this before, so I'm excited about trying this. Here we go.
Which cognac is it?
Doucet says. Not one I've had before. But again, it's going to be all equal parts, except for a little splash of sherry. This is an Amontillado. So it's going to be a teaspoon of that. I'm just gonna wing it. There we go. Just a touch, yeah. And then we're going to be topping it with some champagne. But first, we're going to be filling this with some ice.
When was this? What year?
1951. 1951, Las Vegas Chamber of Commerce published a pamphlet with the recipe for this. So what we're going to do then is just we're going to stir it. If you notice, the first cocktail I did, the daiquiri, had lime juice, and it was a shaken cocktail. Not every circumstance, but traditionally, if you have something that's juice or cream or egg, you will shake it. If you're doing something that is like this, which is mostly booze, you're going to be just stirring it. That's all you need to do. Martinis I like stirred, that's why. So we're going to fill the glass with that, and we're not quite finished. We're going to top it off with 1.5 ounces of champagne. And this is actually not just sparkling wine. It is champagne, Charles Heidsieck. I like Charles Heidsieck. I used to work in a champagne bar, and one of the tricks for that is if you can find the wires to untwist it. Okay, just put your thumb on top, untwist it, and then you can just take the whole thing off, just like that.
That was the champagne hack we've all been waiting for.
And then I'm going to use the spoon so it doesn't really fizz up too much. Then you just top it with the champagne. And there we go. And that is your atomic cocktail. So, cheers.
Who amongst us has had both cocktails?
Wow.
Great.
You don't have to finish the cocktails, just so that you know.
I abstained from the second one for presentation. Anyway, we're going back to General Dynamics because I have the most to say about this stuff.
Cheers, sir. Chin chin.
Would they ever include Russian vodka in a recipe at that time? Is that available widely?
No, not really.
Okay.
No. In fact, one of the few Russian vodkas you can get is Russian Standard. Most vodkas of the day, in fact, most vodkas today are from Poland, Northern Europe, or America.
Except Nicho was supposed to start this section. You're starting. We're ready. Great skirt. Dress. You had ones you wanted to talk about?
You start.
I can start?
You start.
Oh, okay. So the trade fair posters were so amazeballs, and everyone loved them so much that General Dynamics was like, John J. Hopkins was like, oh my God, we are going all in. We're going to produce a second series. We're going to do a third series. The third series is actually like 3, 4, and 5 series, but who's counting? And this essentially qualified as the hot corporate gift. If you were one of the companies that worked with General Dynamics, and there were hundreds of them, this was in your break room. And compared to the shitty corporate art of the 1950s, this was awesome. This was like beloved as like the hot thing you could have in your conference room, your break room. This was sent to you if you were a corporate partner. And this was everywhere. And General Dynamics had their fingers in hundreds, if not thousands of pies. I'm going to highlight the ones that I like best, but if you have ones that you want on this wall.
I'm just going to add before you start, Nicho was also doing all of the other graphic design for the company, so that his images would appear on the yearly corporate reports. So basically his work was now, I have no idea how many people worked for General Dynamics at the time, but it must have been
tens of thousands.
Tens of thousands. So his work was really, literally becoming almost universally known at a time when this style was really of sui generis, becoming its own thing. And as Angelina said, you said it was the best corporate gift. I'm not sure people were actually given them? Were they give them?
Yeah, no, this was like your corporate gift, but it was also like not in the same way that you get like a cut crystal candy dish necessarily, which is like the corporate gift. But it was definitely the stuff that if you worked with them, they would send this to you to decorate your break room. But I'm gonna highlight the ones that I liked.
Go ahead.
Okay. So actually, the first one I like is the Triga, because I think this is, printing-wise, if you're a designer.
To be fair, that's a separate series, but go ahead.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, it's the whole series. So the Triga is one of my favorites in the exhibition. So it says General Atomic at the bottom. General Dynamics is now at the point where it is not just it's a parent company for many things. And they are expanding at a rapid pace. So this poster for Triga is, imagine a nuclear reactor, but make it cute. It's a mini. And the idea, which is very altruistic, is we're going to build these mini nuclear reactors that we are going to give to universities so they can teach the next generation of nuclear scientists. And not only that, but 50% of the Trigas we produce will be sent abroad to train scientists in other countries. And there's a poster later on that shows like all the countries that have a Triga reactor as a training device so that those countries can produce cheap and environmentally friendly power for their citizens, which is a great idea in theory. Lovely. Printing-wise, this poster is very different from almost every poster in the series because it combines photography and lithography. That's really cool. Almost all of the other ones are just pure zinc lithography. What you're looking at is if you were peering over the top, like a bird's eye view, into a nuclear reactor. Who here watched Chernobyl? Yeah, we all love Chernobyl. Not really, but we love the series. Remember when there was the meltdown and the sky was all blue? That's the Cherenkov reaction. It's when the atomic particles are moving faster than the speed of light, so they give off a blue glow. So that's why it is blue. And the wall vinyl behind it is actually going into the Triga reactor that's currently at Oregon State University, looking at the blueness. Obviously, no one has ever seen this with their bare eyes because your face would have melted off. Bad. But again, I just think it's an amazing poster advertising an aspect of what General Dynamics was doing. Yes?
So it seemed as though General Dynamics was sort of pushing itself, or the first stuff it seemed they were showing were things that were specifically about nuclear power, not nuclear bombs. Is that carrying on? And so are we now understanding when you talk about these various components, does there remain this strictly separation between nuclear power versus nuclear bombs?
So the nuclear-powered submarine is one of the most powerful weapons of war that you can have. So I think the line between nuclear power and nuclear weapons is very amorphous at this period. To be fair, you're also out of chronological order here. So this does come after the posters, the Atoms for Peace posters. Yes, but it's from the same ethos. Like those were done within 2 years of each other. This is only a year or two later. The General Dynamics is funded through nuclear weapons. It was not funded by making nuclear reactors. That's just a cool other thing. So they are making both. It's a good time for a short diversion because these posters are beautiful and these posters do totally represent a theme and a mood and a vibe. And the vibe is fantastic in one sense, but more of the reality of what was happening only slightly later are posters like this. And there's several others of these on the wall behind us. This was now in America, was this 1960? 55. 1955, so basically the exact same era where the Civilian Defense Authority was issuing these posters on the off chance that the Russians dropped a nuclear bomb. This is what you had to do. Go, it's easy, you can hide from nuclear fallout. So Angelina talks about your face melting off and the sky turning blue. We know that now, but back then, it's unclear what was exactly known, but it's fairly obvious, I think, historically, that these were disingenuous posters. Like, no one actually thought you could outrun a nuclear blast, or nobody actually thought you could hide behind a tree and you'd be okay. And the poster sort of shows the decimation of a city, a la Hiroshima. Literally, it shows buildings shaking and falling down, and then it says you can protect yourself from radioactive fallout. And these posters were just...
Doing what?
Well,
I'll talk about that.
So here's the thing. So free courses, and then they would have filled, these were printed and distributed all across America, and
These
it would
were
have been
printed in the thousands.
but tens of thousands. These were offset lithographs that would have been super mass produced by the US government, and all across the country, in VFW halls, in chambers of commerce, they would have been holding 50s.
Post offices.
So this one is unfilled out, but you would have seen them filled out. So while Eric Nicho makes it look beautiful, and he really does, it wasn't, this was the military reality of what was happening.
Yes.
I was curious, you talked a bit about the photographic reproduction process for this one, and I see there's some photographs also kind of embedded in some of these other lithographs. And I was curious, I'm familiar a bit with silkscreen, and I know how you would do photographic reproduction for those, but I don't know how that would work for lithograph, and I was curious.
That's a good question, Angelina. What do you think?
Why are you asking me this
No,
question?
really, I'm curious too. That's a great question.
Someone who's probably better at this than I am in the room. No, I'm just not going to. So when Dafikune was here, we had a massive amount of trouble trying to figure out how these were printed. When you get over there, I'll talk about how something is clearly most likely it was either created through silkscreen or partial use of silkscreen or possibly letterpress. For the ones that have photographic imagery in them, that could have been done a variety of ways, but there is no dot pattern, which...
Yeah, well, that's what I was looking at this one, and there's no halftone.
There's no halftone. So I'm guessing zinc lithography.
Okay.
Is how I would guess, but like when I did the Swiss Grid show years ago, I had 3 Swiss printing experts in the most heated, hot debate I've ever seen about how something was printed, and if those guys who have dedicated like 75 years of their lives to figuring out how something is printed, if they can't figure it out, I'm not hazarding that guess. But yeah, basically I am not smart enough to answer your question, but yes.
All deference to the hot debate, I recently just saw the documentary television of it.
Yes, we are partnering with them to do, because that comes by later. Can we return to that? Television, it's amazing.
So I will ask my question and
yes.
it will get answered later, which is, all of this is very potentially hopeful.
Yes, we're in the
and
lead
then
up to,
1983,
yes.
You hit this point where, so the television event, for those of you who don't know what it is a documentary about the making of the film, the TV movie The Day After, which those of us who are old people remember as a thing that happened. It was like very kind of a second wave of anti-nuclear anything that happened in the United States, including things like, we in schools hid under our desks, like that was gonna.
Duck and cover.
Duck and cover. Like that was gonna do anything in the event of a nuclear.
In case of a nuclear attack, get under your desk.
So,
That's right. That's right.
It's the time frame I'm most curious about. That's 1983, and so
that's coming
That's
up.
the second half of the show.
It's like not propaganda, but it is propaganda. So I'll just tease. That's a teaser.
Yes. Well, this is corporate propaganda.
For later. Yes, this is corporate.
This is
propaganda.
corporate
It
propaganda.
gets to, like, mass social propaganda potentially later.
And to be fair, because I don't want to paint Nietzsche as a guy who was complicit in something he didn't believe in, I am sure he did not know the gravity of what he was advertising. I imagine that he bought into the dream of, these are amazing uses for atomic energy. Still true. Still true.
I mean,
Still
that's
true.
why I'm so curious.
With great
No,
power
he's
comes
like a
great
super secret
responsibility.
dude.
That's right.
Is there any poster over here you want to talk about
You want to
before?
talk about the clay?
I'm going to talk about these because we are
let's go.
short on time
Good.
and long on drinks. Okay, this wall, the top 2 posters are 2 of my favorites in the exhibition.
I was going to preface and say, so after the 2 series of Atoms for Peace, the campaign was so popular, the company wanted to keep them going. There were no more atomic conventions happening. So the 3rd series was called Exploring the Universe. These were what, 1958?
1958.
1958. So this is the Exploring the Universe collection. Go.
57, 58.
Okay.
So these 2 are my favorites because I think they're beautiful, but I want to talk about this one, which I think is not very attractive.
I love it.
You're weird. So does anyone remember maybe 6 or 7 years ago when a certain president said we should nuke hurricanes? Does anyone remember that? Yes. And does that sound like a possibly odd idea?
Not coming out of Trump's mouth.
No, but it's not an odd idea coming out of anybody's mouth, because in 1957, the President's Advisory Committee on Nuclear Energy, their entire job was figuring out ways to control weather through nuclear bombs, essentially.
To get lightning to strike enemy bombers.
Yes, or to reroute the Bering Strait to cause a drought, to nuke the polar ice caps to flood Russia. It would also flood us. Obviously, none of these ideas ever came to fruition, but there was a government agency tasked with coming up with these ideas on how to use nuclear weapons and energy to control the weather, and that's what this poster is about. And these posters, like I said at the beginning, are an amazing way to view moments in history and what they and the knock-on effects of them today. I am especially fond of 3 moments on the wall behind Nicho. So for those who don't know how I work, this exhibition was primarily gleaned in the General Dynamics section from antitrust lawsuits and other court documents, because there isn't like a great unbiased corporate history of General Dynamics. That doesn't exist. So I'm mostly working with primary source material in legal cases against General Dynamics and what they're buying and what they're selling. And unlike the Soviet Union, where nuclear weapons were funded, where their weapons program was funded by the state, in America, we privatize it. And so the government would hire General Dynamics or Westinghouse or GE to build their nuclear arsenal. Great. Except making a nuclear weapon is incredibly expensive. And so they were like, okay, what do you do if you're always in the red as a business? You find a recession-proof business. And so one of the things they tried, which was not a good idea, was they tried to compete with Boeing. And so they worked in the airplane industry for a brief period. Only like 3 planes were sold, and they were to Delta, and it was a total fail. So that great poster, shitty idea, big fail. This, however, what's like a cool recession-proof industry that you can buy that would, serve you through the next 5 years? Possibly the largest supplier of coal in America. Possibly the largest supplier of like concrete, rebar, anything kind of industrial material. And that was Material Service. And as a byproduct of this, there is a very blatant court document that says that because they bought Material Service, for a brief period of time, General Dynamics, a weapons manufacturer, owned the Empire State Building. That blew my mind. But the best thing I found, if you come this way.
Can I just say one thing?
You can interject all you like.
It's not an interjection, it's an addition. Because this poster here for electronic intelligence, which is all about radar and sonar, and again, they bought a company, I forget the name, Stromberg Carlson Company, and they were showing how their radar could chart land and whatnot. The thing about this, and I don't know if you know this, you may know this if you don't.
I do know this.
Which is just excellent from a graphics point of view, is that designed in 1960, Erich Nietzsche basically came up with the first edification of what we now see as the Wi-Fi logo.
Yeah, no, it's yes, it's in the wall label, but is amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, but the coolest thing that I found before we go on to, so please keep drinking your incredibly strong beverages. Okay, so the coolest thing I found in court documents is, again, another recession-proof industry that General Dynamics acquired was liquid carbonic. Why would they acquire liquid carbonic? The largest gas, they did medical gases and industrial gases, the largest gas manufacturer in the US. Why would they do that? Well, there was an idea that in order to cool a nuclear reactor, rather than using heavy water, which is a rather complicated and difficult process you have to basically get it all from Norway. It's a pain in the ass. They were like, oh, we could possibly cool a nuclear reactor through gas. And so there are some nuclear reactors that were cooled through gas. It didn't work out. It's not like the best idea, but good try. But as a byproduct of that, it meant that through the acquisition of liquid carbonic, General Dynamics now owned every supply chain for every soda company in America. So if you bought a Coca-Cola in 1960, you were funding a weapons manufacturer. Because they had no other, they happened to own it. And all of this is to say the pervasiveness of these large parent companies in particularly in the American sphere, but really globally, cannot be overstated. They are literally in everything. Yes?
So you said you learned a lot of this stuff through antitrust?
Yes, antitrust documents.
So did something actually break it up?
For material service, yes. I don't think I got to the end of the antitrust documents for this. I just got it for like the stuff that was relevant to my wall label. But I mean, this is like thousands and thousands. I only have so much time.
Oh, got it, understood. Okay, I just didn't know if you knew.
But yes, yes.
Do they have a consumer or industrial plastics division?
Yes.
So.
But no posters for it.
Probably not.
Not here, but I mean like.
In all, I think he did 29 different posters for the company. Does that number sound right?
Six. Yeah.
He was art director for General Dynamics from 1955 to 1965. Does that sound right?
Later than that.
So he designed a lot of posters, and I want to show you something like the one right above Angelina's head, and then the one over there with the propeller. Among his many different styles, these are very kinetic, and so if you stare closely enough at the whirlpool, you're going to be drawn in. Same thing as with the propeller. The other thing is, he wasn't just designing for General Dynamics. One of the other things that Nicho did, which are so incredible and wickedly hard to find, is he was the designer for Decca Records, and he did album covers. And if you, I mean, I was doing some research. Things like this appear almost exactly the same as on some of his record covers, as do the original Adams piece. So it's amazing. I actually bought one the other day for like $20 on eBay, but in terrible condition. It hasn't arrived yet, but they're incredible works of art that would have been very widespread and not nearly as appreciated in their time as they are now. But his style was very much recognizable, regardless of the medium that he was working in.
So he did squares and rectangles.
He did squares and rectangles, that's right.
All formats, yes.
And he did several very important movie posters. He also worked for Orbox, I believe. He worked for Filene's Basement. Is that right? I think that's right.
Yes, he did work for Filene's Basement.
And then there was a very famous Broadway show that was called Something About the Prostitute. He was a super famous campaign that he did, but his All About Eve movie poster was very, very highly decorated. There's been some interesting movie poster exhibitions here at Poster House. I'm not sure if you've seen them. Just kidding, Dawn, sorry. Inside joke, sorry, Dawn, sorry.
Wouldn't there be more careful kind of policing of branding? Like, wouldn't a guy, I mean, could he really have taken a kind of this to a record?
I think back then it didn't matter, but if you look at it now, having been here tonight, if you go online and you look up Eric Nicho, Decca Records, you'll see some of these things. You'll be like, you'll actually do a double take and you'll ask yourself, is that not the poster shrunk down? And it's not. It's just very, very similar. He did live in New York. He moved up to Pound Ridge.
Yeah, Pound Ridge, and then did he ever go back to Switzerland? I don't think he went back to Switzerland.
I'm not sure if he did.
And did he know Gropius and Albers and the Bauhaus people?
So that's a great question. Do you know this little tidbit? Which was that Nicho never worked with the Bauhaus at all. He never worked with the Bauhaus at all. He wasn't part of the Bauhaus. No. But at some point in his career, one of the Bauhaus designers came to New York and said publicly, who is this Bauhaus designer doing all this work here? And he sort of wrapped himself in that mantle of pride, but he never...
The other thing is that his family was very close to the family of Paul Klee. So when you look at, there are two posters over there that have a clear Klee motif in them.
Yeah, he was inspired by them, but didn't study.
Exactly right.
He was not a big deal. Like he's not like a Lester Beale figure. He's just like he was an under the radar guy who did a really good campaign. All over the radar as well. Yes.
A little bit about the combination of public and private, right? I mean, is that what you're really asking about?
Both popular art form record covers and what seems to be a large-scale weapons manufacturer using the same or consistent
Yeah, but if you think of pop imagery, like Kraftwerk had just come out with the pro-nuclear song in the 80s. Like there is that blend of pop and corporate often in the space dealing with nuclear stuff.
Cocktail number 3.
Cocktail number 3! Done!
Don, you ready?
Is there cheese left?
There's cheese, yes. Mm-hmm. Come on over for the third cocktail. Okay. I know some of you have the third cocktail. It's going around now. Wait for a few more people to come over. Boozy, and the second cocktail was very boozy. So to go along with that, the third cocktail is also going to be very boozy. So
All cocktails of the period very boozy?
pardon me?
Are these characteristic of cocktails of the period which were all very boozy?
It's characteristic of these particular cocktails that are boozy.
So there was more.
Yeah, there was a variation. The reason these were picked is because they were atomic or nuclear themed. And it's nice because even though they're very boozy, the seminar, what we're doing right now is such that if you don't like rum, if you're not really into the first cocktail, well, the next cocktail is vodka and cognac. And if you're not into that, this cocktail is going to be gin. And if you're not into gin, the last cocktail is going to be whiskey. So there's going to be one of these cocktails is for you, hopefully. If not, all 4. If you can make it through all 4, I think Angelina might give you a sticker or something. So now this next cocktail is called the Oppenheimer Martini. And it is from the days of the Manhattan Project. So this goes back to the 40s.
Wait, so he was alive and they named a cocktail after him? That's kind of cool.
Well, it's named after him because he came up with the recipe. Yeah. So, for those of you who don't know, the Manhattan Project at Los Alamos, New Mexico, was where they developed the atomic bomb, and it was overseen by Robert Oppenheimer, who they made the big movie about a few years ago that was combined with the Barbie movie. So, one thing that they left out from the movie was how much they drank. They drank a lot. This is his martini recipe, and he was also known as a skilled bartender. He had a lot of parties in his house, like serious cocktail parties. So it was important enough that no kidding, the Los Alamos History Museum today has souvenirs such as shot glasses with the recipe on it. It is called the Robert Oppenheimer Martini or the Oppenheimer Martini. They sell cocktail shakers like this. This is a Boston shaker, which means it's got the lid on it with a strainer. On the other side it says the Oppenheimer Martini with his recipe on it. So that's how serious the guys at Los Alamos were about making their cocktails. This says 4 ounces good gin, a smidge of dry vermouth, lime juice, and honey syrup. And it says, stir liquids with the ice until chilled, then strain into a chilled martini glass with honey lime juice applied to the rim. So that's what we're going to do. Now, I don't know if you're concerned about tariffs at all. What we're doing today is we are going to be using what goes into our martini, gin and dry vermouth. This gin is Green Hook Gin Smiths from Brooklyn. Yeah. So we have a New York gin, and as I said before, we're adding booze and booze, so we're going to be stirring this. So we are going to be having, these guys like to drink 4 ounces of gin. Yeah, so we're going to be doing quite a bit of gin. All right.
Does anyone need the martini, by the way? Okay, I'll go.
They should be coming around, and also they should be collecting your empties. So, 4 ounces of gin and a smidge of vermouth. I happen to like vermouth. Vermouth's one of my things. I'm not one of those like just wave the vermouth over it or tip it in the direction of France, that kind of thing. I like dry vermouth. This dry vermouth I've never had before. I just sampled it. It's okay. I like it. It's from New Jersey. So again, tariffs, don't worry about it. You can still make this cocktail. So I'm just adding a smidge. Okay.
Don, how much gin do you put like a normal martini? If you were just making martini in a bar, how many ounces would that be?
Oh, generally I like an ounce of vermouth. What's that? Well, it depends on the proof. I would go like an ounce of vermouth and then 3 to 5 ounces of, or 3 to 5 ratio. 3 to 5 ratio. Yeah. So then what we're going to do, before we add the ice to this, we've got a honey lime syrup, which is made with lime juice and honey. That's all it is. And
Here, I can
just
take
going to put it on the rim, just like if you were going to be doing a margarita. And then, it's over, here it is, ice. Going to fill this with ice. And then, again, stir. I'm just going to stir it. Stirring chills it, but it also dilutes it, so the proof isn't quite as high, and then it balances, it blends the gin and vermouth together. Then we're going to strain it. This does not need any garnish. It's got the lime honey rim. Perfect. There we go. And if it was a regular martini, I would either do olives or I like a swath of lemon peel. Really just wonderful on that. But
We've got the lime on the rim.
we've got the honey and lime, very boozy, just gin and a little bit of vermouth. You can't really go wrong with that. So Oppenheimer martini. Cheers to all of you. Thank you very much. Oh, yeah. There's going to be a fourth cocktail that's going to be a whiskey.
Do a little bit more pedantry. So follow us. Are we going to start? We're going to go down there.
Yeah, where do you want to start?
Well, I will. As we go, we're going to go down to the 1980s now. But I do want to point out this one poster here. I mentioned at the top of the show that there were several artists who had found fame in the art world, not the post world. This is Ben Shahn, who's one of the great American social artists. Ben Shahn, S-H-A-H-N, Ben Shahn. He is Jewish. Not only is he a great artist, but he's Jewish. Go figure.
I was not.
Is that right? Yeah. Superb. Anyway, so this is, he was very politically active. He did posters for Sacco and Vanzetti. He did posters getting out the vote in the years following the Second World War. And this was a poster that he did, obviously, to stop H-bomb tests. And one of the things about this is that, actually, Angelina, I need your input here, because we've had this argument many times, and you've lost every time, and you're about to lose again. So I just wanted you to be present in front of the camera for this. We have talked often, Angelina and I, in our late night texts, which aren't sex but poster texts, about what makes a poster. And a poster...
Depends on what you view as sexual.
They're very sexual for us. But one of the things that Angelina has been very rigid about, and it says something about our relationship where she is the rigid one and I'm not, different story. Ben Shahn was an artist first and a poster designer second, and Ben Shahn made a lot of prints, and the prints that he made were signed and numbered. You're getting ready for this right now. And Angelina has this thing, this sort of awkward, unpleasant thing where she insists that a signed and numbered print isn't a poster, and yet this is a signed and numbered print.
It's the best one we could get.
Just saying. So you may have slipped something into the poster house. It isn't a poster so much as a
Wait,
print.
no, this isn't a signed and numbered print. That you are wrong, sir.
This was an unsigned edition, but these were signed and numbered.
There are versions of this that are signed and numbered. This one is trimmed.
But why
So
would
they trimmed it off.
It's trimmed, they trimmed, it. No,
So
no,
that
there's auxiliary text that
There is
happens, no, there is. There's auxiliary text on this that has been trimmed off. It is not signed and numbered. This is the poster version. The print version is actually more expensive, which is why we don't.
What is
we
that?
don't- That's just a dealer's mark.
But does Jean-Michel know that he's just copying Ben Shahn from 50
I
years ago?
didn't get to meet Jean-Michel,
Yeah.
despite what my face may imply. No, didn't get to meet him, so don't know. But if you guys love Ben Shahn, the Jewish Museum is about to open a great exhibition on Ben Shahn that you should absolutely go
So
see.
now let's go down to the
Yes,
protest
okay, so
posters
we're in the
1980.
home stretch. Yes, killing our home stretch.
I think what you're saying is there's something about the way people use posters, and there's something about art with a capital A, and I would love to hear a little bit about that.
So, Angelina, which is the voice of Poster House. for
And a
all intents and
capital A, Angelina.
Yes. So I define a poster, and many people will disagree. It is a public-facing notice meant to persuade that marries word and image. Generally, it also has to be a printed multiple. If something is in the public sphere and is advertising to you and advertising can be convincing you to do something. It could be vote, attend an event, buy a product. That is a poster. If it's live, laugh, love, that's not a poster. That is decoration. If it's meant to be saved, if it is not garbage, it is probably not a poster. It may be a print.
Or meant to
Well, I mean, a lot of things can influence that can live in your home. If it is meant to live, if it is ephemeral in nature, if it's meant to live and die, then it is more of a
I
poster.
could recommend if you take her phone number and text her all night long about this, it will provide months of entertainment
I would
because I've
rather
been doing
have
it.
you on the record in disagreement.
Oh,
I thought you were going to say you would rather have his phone number, and I was like,
We've been
done.
on the record disagreeing about this forever. We were both at the Brooklyn Print Fair a few weeks ago having a very public spat about this. It was actually called Print versus Poster, and the poster was like a boxing poster of the two of us squaring off against each other, which is arguably a poster and is a collectible.
That is, because it's advertising something.
And I would assume that we're
This is a poster. This, if it is the version that is, okay, so maybe the better example is if you think of the Lincoln Center posters that were produced in the 60s by the Vera List Foundation. The ones that were used publicly, like the ones in the subway, those are the posters. The ones that were sold for 10 times that value, those are prints. And they're usually printed on slightly different material, like it's just like, it's more, like it's vellum, or it's plastic, or it's something a little bit more luxe, as opposed to the utilitarian nature of a poster that is just meant to communicate. So the communication element is incredibly important to me. And if you want Nicho's number, he can absolutely give it to you.
I appreciate actually the notion of audience, which is I think what you're getting at, which is like who is the audience for this, and if you want to produce something that's going to influence people on their way to work, on their way home from work, you're not talking about a fancy printed poster, you're talking, or
Print.
You're talking about a poster.
Exactly.
I think that's what I was
The poster is the public medium. Thank you. I love the snaps. The snaps are great.
I appreciate this commentary so much.
Well, after the final round, during the fourth cocktail, we can all hang out. But in the interest of time, we're gonna blast.
Go down.
We're gonna blast.
Let's do this.
I love your enthusiasm.
The enthusiasm is unbridled.
Okay, just because. What time is it?
Go straight to the Peter
Just
Canard.
because our security guard is on a time limit, let's go. We're gonna cut.
Everybody down this way.
Okay. Yeah. We're gonna go around the wall. Grab the cheese around the wall.
I don't know how you guys are walking right now.
This is the best part. This is the best thing ever. It's the best thing ever. Have you been to these before?
This is like my fourth time.
This
Super
is
fan. I
the,
love
this is
the
this
super
is the
fan.
first time in a long time that
All
she's
right,
been
we're on
drinking
the
as
other
much as
side
I
of the
do.
wall,
Usually I'm the
guys.
drunk.
Other side of the wall. Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Yep. So in the blast by we just did of my co-curator's entire section, no shade to Tim, sorry. It starts basically with the Cuban Missile Crisis is when you start getting counter-protest posters to the idea of nuclear proliferation as well as nuclear energy. There's one poster there celebrating nuclear energy, and that's by Bernard Villemot. It's a French poster, and it's because France has the only developed country with a lower carbon footprint than it had in the 70s because almost all of its energy is done through nuclear power. A lot of environmentalists have problems with that, but still, it is worth considering. Ah! Yes, but this section, I think, is incredibly important because it highlights the other artist, other than Eric Nicho, is the most represented artist in the show. He is still alive, and that is Peter Kennard. He has had a show at the Imperial War Museum. He had a show at Whitechapel when I was there last year. He is an incredible contemporary activist designer. And that kind of set of nine posters over there. Imagine if the mayor of New York decided to say, you know what, screw the federal government. I'm going to hire an artist to create a poster campaign that goes against government policy. And that's what the mayor of London did. Right?
And the other thing about these, which I think is just fantastic, is they really are a bridge between what a lot of people think posters are. And when I was growing up and I wasn't in the business, I had posters on my dorm room wall in college. And I grew up with posters of comic book characters or movies, some protest posters, and these really are the bridge for me between the kind of things I would have up when I was in college, like a dorm room poster, and fine art and graphic design. And really, if you just take a moment to look at some of them and to read the text, both on the posters and in Angelina's wall text, Tim's, they are so profound and so effective and so great. And I think back to when I was young, again in the Hoover administration, and this was exactly the kind of anti-authority, screw the man kind of imagery that I loved, and Peter has done such a great job with them.
Oh yeah. No, and Peter's the real deal. Like I had the luxury and privilege of meeting him when I went to go see the show at Whitechapel. And one thing that you'll note is that, with the exception of one piece here, he avoids using the mushroom cloud image because at that time he felt that. It was a desensitized image, because if you look at it, there was a statistic he gave me that if you look at like headshot posters, like the type of posters like dorm room posters, the second most purchased poster was that girl with the remember the tennis player where she was like lifting up her skirt and scratching her butt? Every guy had it in the 80s. I don't know, I didn't have it. But like
for what it's worth, I remember, and I have it.
Yeah, he remembers it. The first most purchased one was the mushroom cloud. So it meant that every dude with like a Nintendo console had the mushroom cloud in their house.
Before the Nintendo.
Yeah. Yes, it was. But it was. But like the exotization, the love of the mythology behind the mushroom cloud was like a view of power, of like it was a sexy image. So if you can't use the mushroom cloud anymore for impact. So Peter was creating imagery that was finding impact in different ways through photo montage. And I particularly like this poster behind me. So Protest and Survive is riffing on Protect and Survive. There's a program in England called Panorama. It's comparable to 60 Minutes. And they leaked the government videos as well as essentially the content of Protect and Survive, which the concept was that 2 days before nuclear holocaust was inevitable, you would get this in the mail. Obviously, they're assuming the mail works 2 days before nuclear holocaust, but great. And that they would air these videos as like kind of PSAs on what to do in the event of nuclear holocaust. And when Panorama leaked them, the outcry against them by the British population, and I know there is at least one British man in this room who may say I'm wrong, but the outcry of the British population was like, wow, that's ridiculous, and people really had a very visceral response to it. And there's a lot of protest imagery that came out after it. And so the Protect and Survive manual is ridiculous because it says things like, you should take down your net curtains because they might burn.
So to that point, if we think about the poster that we saw back then that said how to survive nuclear fallout, which was, again, in historical retrospect, absurd, we have this poster here, which is the skeleton reading the Protect and Survive manual, and it says, have you ever wished you were better informed? It's like, these guys are fucking stupid. Like, it's not, this brochure isn't gonna help. And that's how the propaganda and that's how the approach changed.
And he's taking the tagline of the equivalent of the London Times, so the equivalent of the New York Times. That's their tagline, and he's twisting it for his own means. Here he went to Hamley's, which is the equivalent of F.A.O. Schwartz, a children's toy store, and he found a toy nuclear missile They were selling that in the 80s, chopped it in half and did a cardboard peace sign. This is also not, we think of it as the peace sign. It's the Campaign for Nuclear Disarmament logo. It was never trademarked. We think of it as the peace sign. That is not what it is. It's like the semaphore for C&D. He made this poster. Fantastic. Yes?
I just wanted to point out, I thought it was very interesting that we started out on this side talking about the size of the prints and
Nicho loves to talk about size.
It matters a lot.
But it's also like they're beautifully produced lithographs and like they're funded by defense companies, and we come here to the area where we're talking about like the opposition and like some anti-establishment politics, and we can see everything is much, much smaller.
So just, if I'm understanding you right, you're saying smaller is better and stronger.
No,
I don't remember that being a problem for you.
No, I'm just pointing out the difference between who's funding these projects where we have these kind of grassroots, like anti-establishment.
I think what you've nailed is the run of the show. It's exactly the mentality. As you walk through the show, you see how it went from this glorious thing that was being glorified well, and then being protested against. Yep.
And then the protest posters, which are like maybe even more poignant, I think, than some of these things that kind of gloss over these like really troubling themes. And then here we have imagery presented in much smaller and like more grassroots scale.
We also think of budget. Yes, the general dynamic stuff is troubling themes, but Nietzsche, I don't think that they necessarily perceived it as a troubling theme. I think
so early, nobody knew.
So that many people were like, yes, this possibility, space exploration sounds awesome.
It's our future, exactly.
Like when you look at the sonar one for deep sea exploration, you know how they do that? They blow up a nuclear bomb underwater to see how sound waves travel. That's how that works. And that's horrible, but that also led to a lot of incredible science. So there's a balance between good and bad, but also in this section there are a lot of actually serious designers. There's Milton Glaser behind you. There's Seymour Quast over there. There's the guy who did all of the Absolute Vodka ads right here. Like there are some serious designers behind a lot of these grassroots movement posters.
My point was not really about the quality of the work.
No, I know it's
the amount of funding behind the execution. Like the production.
And interestingly enough, the question then, and it's a totally subjective question, is which are the more effective posters? The ones that had great big corporate backing, or the ones that were done basically on a thumbnail budget? This wasn't quite done on a thumbnail because it was the City of London, but some of the other protest posters.
But a lot of it was donated. Like this box, which many of the Kennard posters came in, was donated from a record company. It's the same record you would get like a double record in. It's the same box. A lot of this stuff was donated for the cause, so it was done on a shoestring budget for the most part.
But
because
is it just money, or are they rebelling against the glossy style of Bauhaus and corporate America?
I think it's money, because anyone, if somebody had access to like a 6-foot billboard, like woohoo.
Of the print, you mean?
The quality of the print is fine across the board. Once you get photo offset, your quality goes up. It doesn't matter if I'm printing a Hollywood studio or if I'm Peter Kennard. I have access to the same level of material, give or take.
When does that start?
80s. Realistically, the 80s, probably like sometimes a little before that. Somebody else in the room might know more than I would. Looking at you.
So with that, I think what we want to do is bring you back to the bar for the fourth cocktail, which will be the time for the end, but the time for Q&A. I do want to say we've been doing these posters and cocktails online for a long time and live not nearly as long, but you have been, and Angelina and I were saying this, the most engaged audience as far as questions go. So thank you for your interest and thank you for enjoying what we do as much as we enjoy telling you about it. So that was our great thanks.
Thank you so much.
And we'll be here we'll be here during your fourth cocktail, so you can come and ask us weird questions.
We'll be sharing that fourth cocktail, in fact.
Yes. All right, go forth. Learn about cocktails. Get drunk.
Back to the
Don, you're up.
Cocktail number 4.
Is this so
Come on, one more cocktail.
Is this the only way that
Clyde, one more cocktail. Thank you.
like these people weren't allowed at the table with, right?
Well, no. So that protest video, that movie that woman mentioned earlier, is the Gone with the Wind that poster is engaging with that. Basically, Ronald Reagan saw that movie, came out white as a sheet, and changed his nuclear policy based on a low-budget Hollywood film. So people with
my
grassroots,
thing was
within grassroots movement had a lot of power. And one thing we want to show in the exhibition is that the grassroots stuff really were a game changer. Like, they had more influence than you would think. That the power of the population actually does matter, and that we can.
Since they weren't able to communicate the importance to the powers that be, the communication to the people, the direct effect.
But also, there are tons of posters for the neutron bomb over there. Because of the public outcry against the neutron bomb, every government withdrew its ability to make them. So there is a precedent for the people being like, we don't want this.
The functional program, which
was behind that, they will change it. Probably not the Trump administration, but you know. Wow, no one wants Don's cocktail, I guess.
They're coming back, but everyone's a little tipsy.
Oh yeah, that was the poster that was talking about the.
Yeah, I mean, part of what we're thinking about is like, at what point did the American public was like so scared that they weren't willing to like.
You can send out the fourth cocktail.
Yeah, so I was saying,
It's called a leather neck. Leather neck. Leather, like, well, leather, you know. Leather neck. Leather neck is a nickname for United States Marine Corps people. Members. Yep. They're called leathernecks. And jarheads, but they don't like jarhead. They like leatherneck. What's in it? It's going to be rye whiskey, blue curacao, and lime juice. So it's kind of like, yeah, it's kind of weird. It's kind of weird. It's almost like a rye margarita. Yeah. But with a curacao instead of a Cointreau, and a blue color to make it nuclear. So for some reason, yeah. Again, there was cheese over at that third one. I just saw a full thing of cheese. Do you want me to bring you cheese?
No, it's fine.
Okay.
Anyway,
Okay.
Don is here.
Hello, everybody. This is our fourth and final cocktail. It is a bit boozy tonight, so I think from now on we're going to be doing three great cocktails for you guys. But tonight we are about to do.
I want to preserve that.
Well, people can go out to a bar afterwards and have a fourth, or if there's a cocktail you really liked, at the end of the night, when we're all done, if you'd like to go and say, I'd like some more of this or some more of that, or what have you, if it's available, they can give it to you. But in the meantime, we're going to be doing our fourth cocktail, which is called, it's called a leatherneck cocktail. And it is a nuclear blue cocktail. Not exactly sure, well, I know why, but it's because it has blue curacao in it. Now, again, this is not a modern cocktail. Leatherneck is, for those of you who don't know, it's the nickname for the United States Marines. Taken from the, yeah, booyah, from the leather collars that they wore back in the 1700s, back when they would fight with knives and sabers. It's not a slang. All right, like jarhead is slang for Marines. No, leatherneck is something they're proud of, and their Marine Corps magazine is actually called Leatherneck Magazine. So this cocktail is credited. Yes. So weird. Yeah. This cocktail is credited to a World War II Marine captain named Frank Farrell, and he was a columnist and an editor for the World Telegram, and the Sun and the World Journal Tribune. So it was first published in Ted Sausier's Bottoms Up in 1951. 1951. Same year, again, that they started the atomic testing over at the Nevada testing site. And this cocktail, this is, hey, happen to have Ted Sausier's Bottoms Up from 1951. So, the leatherneck It says, shake violently on the rocks and serve in a cocktail glass. Well, we're going to do that. It says, stop smoking, fasten your seatbelts, empty your fountain pens, because after 2 gulps, you'll seriously consider yourself capable of straightening out Chinese fire drills. Okay, that's a bit what it is. So, we are going to be following the recipe for 2 ounces of a rye whiskey. This is actually a really nice one. This is Templeton Rye, straight rye whiskey. So we're going to go 2 ounces.
It's not quite blue when you get to it at the end.
Well,
I see the blue.
it's a blue
It's like,
green, and there's a reason why. Yeah, it's I guess you could say like a cyan or a turquoise. But yep. For those of you who are not too familiar with rye, it is a whiskey, and to be rye, it has to have 51% rye. That's the grain in it. Like bourbon has to have at least 51% or more corn to be bourbon. Rye is 51% or more rye, and this is a straight rye whiskey. And it is 45% alcohol, so it's 90 proof. It's a little higher. The straight, it doesn't mean that it's complete. I should know that. I should know that.
blue and yellow make green.
Yeah. I'm thinking it means that it's just all rye, but I'm not entirely sure for that. And again, I should know, and I'm on video admitting I don't know that. That's fine. So then blue curacao, we're using a De Kuyper. I've used other blue curaçaos before. Senor is, I think, my favorite. Bowls is actually quite good. This is good. So we're going to be doing 2/3 of an ounce of this. There we go. And earlier I had shown you how to do juice the lime, so I'm not going to bother doing all that again. I'm just going to be straining it, 1/2 ounce of lime juice. There we go. Again, I'm double straining it there.
Thank you.
Then we're going to be adding ice. Okay, here we go. It's very blue. And of course, I don't seem to have my, let me dump this. There we go, wash that out, good.
When you
We're going-
prep for these events, is
Yes.
there typically I'm sure there's so much research that goes into it, but do you ever have this moment where you're like, oh, I know a niche cocktail, I'm so excited to share with people, and this is what I'm going to base?
Oh yeah, most of the cocktails I always find one little thing to really, get me talking about. Let me just pour this real quick before it dilutes too much. So this is going to be our leatherneck cocktail. Like tonight, some ice went in there, that's all right. I was really excited about the ones that were coming from the Atomic Museum, because I've been there to the one in Vegas. My cufflinks are from, but I love that the Oppenheimer cocktail, I didn't realize it was really from Robert Oppenheimer. He came up with that recipe. So tonight we have a new one on me, the leatherneck cocktail, which I found out through the research for tonight. So it's the rye, the blue curacao, and lime juice. Cheers. Yeah. It's almost like a rye margarita. So, cheers, Sarah.
All right, everybody, thank you. Thank you. All right, go around the exhibition. We have at least, we don't have, but let our security guards fee go long. Let's play some overtime. Everyone enjoy the exhibition, finish your drinks.
Q&A, we're here.
We're here.
Drinking. If you have no
There are
questions, just
somebody ate all the
enjoy.
cheese. I'm very upset about this, but enjoy the evening. Thank you for coming. We're doing one in the fall.
Thank you, Nicho. Thank you, Angelina.
Thank you, Don.
Thank you all for coming.
Have we done a selfie?